So, welcome everybody. 19th of April, 2023, delivery system sync and demo. We have some discussion topics and a demo. Discussion topics. Skarbek, do you want to open with that?
Sure. So I've been working on planning for Q2 OKRs, and we've got this epic to identify a path that enables us to kind of move forward with a stepping stone that enables us to do a few things. One being to make our deployments easier to understand and accept and manage the K8s workloads repository easier in a whole host of ways. The other goal being a stepping stone towards leveraging a service mesh in some way, shape, or form. I'm looking for feedback on our plan and what you think. I don't really know what questions I should be asking here, Michele. I'm just kind of like, just a broad, what's everyone think, and what's everyone want to do for Q2, I guess. I don't know. I wanted to raise this as a discussion point because this is something I've been working on. So I wanted to make sure that our team is on the same page, we think the same things, etc.
Thank you, Skarbek. I think this is important to understand if everyone is on the same page, if everyone understands the scope of the work, and if the scope is clear enough or we have questions around that. I think it's something maybe we can surface today. I guess everybody maybe give it a look to the epic, since it is the one that is also linked to our OKR discussion issue. So what everybody thinks about this and about the work for next quarter.
The OKR sounds like it'll take us closer to a lot of long-term goals. And even if those long-term goals takes us a very long time, like even measured in years, I think this one OKR, this one quarter's goals will still be useful for release managers at least.
So I guess one thing I could attempt to speak to, Jenny, you mentioned in one of your feedback comments about timing and maybe us being too ambitious, specifically because you commented how there's going to be some cross-team collaboration and some discussion items are part of this work. I'm hoping this is specific towards the service mesh. Epic has a few discussion items tied to it. I'm hoping that the majority of those discussions can be resolved relatively quickly because a lot of people have already commented on the existing issue already. So I'm hoping it's just a matter of taking the feedback those issues already have and either doing a small poll or just driving the results of what has been discussed so far. So I'm hoping the discussion is relatively minimal, like hopefully less than a week total, just to like close out that entire issue. And then we could focus our efforts on testing and implementation details. So I hope at least.
Which discussion issue you're talking about?
Let me go link it. So an Epic 962 is the one that I created for the purposes of showcasing the implementation of a service mesh, and inside of there is two technical discussion items. Both of these came from the reliability team. Sorry, I'm typing over someone.
No worries.
But one of them is geared towards gathering a list of requirements, which I feel like we have completed that. It's just a matter of, closing out that issue. The second one is the discussion of various candidates for a service mesh. I feel like there's been enough talk in both of those issues. It should just be a matter of closing any loose ends and threads, and we could start gearing towards implementation details. But it's only been me and maybe 2 or 3 other people. It would be nice if the rest of our team, if able, are capable of participating in the conversation, just to, you know, finalize our decisions that we want to make.
Anyone else? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm getting a FOSS. Oh, I'm not signed in. I got signed out somehow.
So that was Jenny's specific feedback on that particular epic. Is there anything anyone has in regards to simplifying our configurations with you know, a future end goal of reaching a GitOps style of, you know, hosting that repository? Is there any feedback anyone has or has thought about in regarding that work?
That's one of the part of the discussions that listed next to your to your discussion, actually. I don't know if we've finished with those discussing those issues, and maybe we can jump over, because it's kind of those topics are related to each other, very close. So I did my research on Cilium, Istio, and the whole like a traffic management user story, like based on service mesh. And I found out that, well, first of all, the good news is like Cilium is working fine on pre-clusters, and it's part of new cluster builds. It's a part of new Google Kubernetes engine control plane. So it's like the new version of the control plane, which is based on Cilium, not on Calico or anything else. And Cilium is very cool and it works very well, but it's more focused on level 3, level 4 traffic management. It provides us the functionality of extended network policies, of traffic shifting, and etc., etc. But it's again like it's limited to L3, L4. It also has some sort of L7 functionality, but this L7 functionality is mostly for policies as well. So you can set the policy on certain path, but this doesn't. This is not coming. This like L7, like the whole L7 functionality of Cilium, it's still based on Envoy. So when you create a network, when you create a policy that includes HTTP endpoints or HTTP path or something like this, it spin up Envoy on each node, and it's dealing with Envoy. So it's like we need Envoy anyway, and this is reasonable, and I can understand the reason why they are using Envoy, because eBPF is very nice, but if you put things like HTTP stack, WebSocket stack, or SSL libraries into the kernel, your kernel is going to be like probably SSL itself is bigger than the kernel. So there is no reason to put things in the kernel, L7 things to the kernel. So therefore, we still need Envoy or any other sort of L7 traffic management. I also and Cilium doesn't provide us this out of the box, and it's also so their approach is like bring your own control plane. So that means Cilium will work, will act as CNI, and it will work with many other service meshes like Linkerd, Istio, or whatever. And I also looked at Istio, and well, basically Istio based on Envoy. But there is a major upgrade of Istio since I looked like a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. Now there is a new Istio control plane version that calls Istio. I always forgot the name. Istio Ambient. So it's kind of ambient Istio. And the cool thing about that, it doesn't require the sidecars, Envoy as a sidecar. So my major concern about Istio was that, so we have like hundreds or even thousands of pods, and if every single pod need to have Envoy sidecar, then it's just a waste of resources, and it's kind of, it adds like a major overhead on this. So the good news, Istio Ambient doesn't need Envoy sidecar, but it uses this thing that calls Z-tunnel, which is basically the same Envoy, but it's running as a daemon set. So instead of having the same amount of Envoy instances as we have pods, we will have same amount of Envoy instances as we have nodes, basically. So not per pod, but per node. And all of this works very well with Cilium. I would say that from my point of view, that's the way to go in terms of the tech stack. I tested that. I played around on my local machine. It works very well. And it also, Istio is kind of very mature, well-known solution. I'm sorry. And it also has integration with Flugger, which is progressive rollout tooling from Weaveworks that works together with Flux. So, and then I come up with, I discussed today with Michele, and we come up with some sort of 3 milestone path. So the first milestone
Did you add it to the epic as a comment, Vladimir?
No, not yet. I wanted to discuss first, and then I will add it to the epic. Yes, of course.
Because it's kind of easier for people to follow, right? If in a written form.
Yeah.
But at this point, let's follow up on that, right?
Yeah. So, do you want me to go through these milestones, or do you want me to write them down first?
No. Feel free to describe it to the team how you taught them, because for me, it's just I was following along what you were saying, but it's important to understand the feedback of the team. So at this point, let's go with it, but let's document it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like the end goal. Let's start with the North Star. The North Star would be to have disposable clusters, enabling like a blue-green cluster rebuilds. We are not applying cluster. We are not applying cluster version upgrades. We just create new clusters, and everything is like hooked dynamically, and we're able to to do canary deployment, A/B testing of application like automatically, and this all on top of like a multi-cluster, multi-region, probably in the future, or even multi-cloud solution. And we are not treating clusters as pets. We treating them as a cattle, and if we need to upgrade, we just create a new cluster and hook it to the existing to the load balancer. That's the North Star. So how to reach this North Star? We need to go iteratively. And I suggested that we take our existing infrastructure, we take Terraform code that we have already, add to this Terraform code, we can add Flux installation. So we have Flux, like Flux has Terraform provider. We just add this to our existing stuff. Then spin up Flux as a separate entity, basically, and in the separate Git repository. And in this Git repository, we put everything that is related to Istio, Flugger, I don't know, like notifications, and like everything that is related to like this new way of deploying things and managing our deployments. We put it there. But we're gonna still have a lot of JSONnet and Tanaka and etc. etc. So this is gonna stay, but that will be like the addition to what we have now. And then step number 2, or milestone number 2, would be to actually take everything that we have in JSONnet, Tanaka, and etc. etc. convert it to Flux resources. Instead of instead of having these build pipelines and deployments, we're gonna have like a fully GitOps solution on the step on the stage number 2. That's gonna take like a probably multiple quarters to achieve. And step number 3. So we like imagine we have everything on GitOps, everything is kind of driven by commits, but the only thing what we have is the really low level code that builds Kubernetes clusters. And we're building them still like it's very still very manual process to build them, right? So we need to replace that part. And then at the very end kind of the very end of this process, we just replace this Terraform based manual pipelines or whatever, replace it with something like Crossplane or Pulumi or something like that. I personally prefer the Crossplane because we're gonna have like everything in GitOps and everything managed by Kubernetes control plane. And then we replace it and we achieve the goal, basically. So those kind of 3 steps approach and 3 iterations that we might think about. Yep.
So this is definitely wider than the scope of 954, right? So it's good to have it documented somewhere and having like a discussion for everybody. It's probably easier to see it like in a written form, as I was telling before. But what is the thoughts of people on this?
Sorry, like one thing, like the scope is definitely like the whole scope is definitely wider, but we can fit in the scope, we can fit the like the very first stage, which actually focused on service mesh, on traffic shifting and etc. etc.
Yeah.
We just add in, we just not hacking the existing Tanaka or JSONnet functionality, we just installing this using Flux, and then we're gonna have like our first component that it's managed by GitOps.
I think that's a fine idea. I did try to, excuse me, I did try to capture your notes in bullet point 1B2. So feel free to take that and expand upon it as necessary. I
Thank you,
do like all
Skyper.
these ideas. I think they're a fantastic North Star. I think this is stuff that we've all discussed in various degrees in the past as is. I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out what is preventing us from getting started. And I think the last thing that we kind of left off with the reliability team is like which GitOps solution we want to leverage. You know, we just saw a Flux demo. Maybe we'll go with Flux, but I think they're still trying to decide on that part. So yeah, I think all this deserves, you know, various issues and epics to, you know, get us to that goal. Just a matter of prioritization, which I think Michele, you could probably chime in as to how best we should handle that.
Yeah, I mean, would be like to have the official statement also for them if you go into Flux or not, right? I guess this is something that is going to happen as the company, you know, decided to actually use Flux as a product. Also, we offer to our customers as part of the integration that we're going to have. The simple question I have here is like, if we start to leverage this GitOps approach with Flux on the first phase, what else needs to change to welcome this new approach? That's the part where I actually rely on you based on expertise, because I don't know to which extent this is going to impact other teams or it's going to impact the way we are doing things. I'm just afraid, you know, of maybe adding a small piece that is bringing us out of quarter for the OKR. So I would like to keep, you know, everything that we can add it if this is going to bring a benefit, and is also if this is going to be good enough as an iteration to bring us to build some value at the end of the quarter.
I think
I don't think we
biggest,
can. Yeah, sorry.
I think the biggest not really hold up, but I think the point of contention that we'll have is if we try to implement this ourselves without the reliability team, we're adding to the count of systems that we're managing our configurations. But if we've got an end goal where we have an explicit, we're going to convert all these other things to Flux or whatever GitOps solution we land on, it should be fine, because eventually we'll have to do that anyways. So maybe it's just a matter of getting something started. And if, you know, a service mesh is our first one, you know, I think that should be fine. We just to make sure that we work with the reliability team such that they're aware that that's happening, because we're going to end up sharing ownership with them regardless, because of all the various components that we install and manage anyways. And I think that's a very important detail. And that's going to be crucially important for the EOCs, because, you know, if we accidentally create an incident directly involving this, we need to make sure that we understand how we manage those configurations and either apply fixes or rollbacks as quickly as possible in certain scenarios.
Okay, so that, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna change a lot here. But there are 2 points basically that it's still kind of, I don't understand how to tackle. It's like the first is this HA proxy empire. We like having service mesh and dynamic traffic shifting, and then on top of that having very static HA proxy. I don't know how it's gonna work, honestly. That's one thing. And another thing is that we probably need to change a little bit of our ChatOps code, because you probably want to like post deployments or something like that using like a Flux CLI, like force reconciliations and etc. etc. Probably that there is something needs to be changed there as well. Oh, plus Flux observability needs to be included as well.
Yeah, there's a whole production initialization or production like readiness review that we'll have to do for the implementation of Flux and a service mesh for that matter.
Okay. Vladimir, let's document that on an issue or one of the comments also on the HR proposals and everything, but let's document that so everyone is up to speed to that we can continue the conversation there. And also we can understand better the scope of what is needed, right? Anything else about this? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, like, I will do that. We'll start like a fully focus on that on Monday. So when I finish my release management duties.
Okay. If there are no extra discussion topic, I think Jenny, you can proceed with the demo.
Yep, pretty quick one as we're running out of time, but I just wanted to share, let me get the right tab first. We have some updates to the toil dashboard. Cool. So people can see my screen. Okay, so it's this last part. You have to scroll down a bit. You can scroll on this page now. That's pretty cool. But anyway, so we have this incomplete/failed deployments. Why I named it that way is because these deployments are not just failing deployments, like the ones that the jobs failed, but they might be the deployments that we didn't take to completion. It stopped after production canary, for example, because we were late due to an incident, stuff like that, right? So you'll notice that if you like take this version and ask it under announcements, if you search it under this, you'll realize that, for example, here, it never finished to production successfully. So it's the versions that are like that. However, there is a caveat because of how this query works. Now I'll show you here. So this is in the range of the last 7 days. So it's including like today, basically. It's including now. So if you actually take a look at the one that's currently deploying this version and look for it, it will be here because technically it's an incomplete deployment at this time, right? At the end of the time range that it's set to. That's because of how this query works. So how we do this is we don't really have a metric right now that says this deployment failed. So this is kind of a hacky way of finding out which is incomplete by saying, well, if it's not completed, then it's incomplete, right? So basically I do a max over time, sum it by version, because basically what this does, I'll show you the graph for it. It looks like this. It reaches 4 once it deploys to every environment. Because it has 1 per environment. If you sum it by version, then it'll go to 4 when it completes. Now, if you do, that's less than 4. So basically it didn't reach production. That's the max over time, the maximum it'll ever go is less than 4. Then the versions that you'll see at the table time, which is just like this end period, like it just takes all the variables that are at the end, it'll give you the versions that basically didn't complete by that time for that range. And then so yeah, there is a caveat here. That's why it says versions and read description. It definitely says that don't count all of these because there is one, or there might be one by the end of this range that might still be deploying. So you can't just be like, okay, so what if I set a range of that ends 3 days ago, maybe let's offset this by a day or something. Still doesn't matter because of how that graph works, right? So by the end of that, there will still be a deploy that's going. The only caveat to it is like, if you do the range, that's like that ends at the start of a weekend. So if there's completely no deploys going on at the time because we're in PCL, then this will be a very accurate number. So you can modify the time range to have that more accurate number if you'd like. But yeah, that's basically how this thing works until we have like an actual metric that says, you know, failed deployments. Same thing here, except this number is actually, if you count, it's one less than this number. So yeah, here it says, I explain why it's slightly inaccurate, and this is one less number. So then if you do that whole caveat method of getting this table to be accurate, then you have to do +1 to the 8 to this number. That's kind of how this table is working right now. It's the same metric, except in the count section, I think in the it's change count. So this is another hacky way of making it might always do -1. Not the most accurate or desirable outcome, but this is basically where we landed after like a week of trying a gazillion different metrics and queries. And until we have like a solid deploy version to failed label, like this isn't going to be that accurate. But until then, this is what we can use. So yeah, I just wanted to show that off. If you wanted to check if like, just check really quickly which deploy failed. Oh, what was that deploy that failed like during this day that caused this incident? Maybe this will give you a nice summary and you don't have to look through a gazillion announcements that day. I don't know, something that could help. So yeah, that's the new 2 panels.
Thank you,
now that
Jenny.
now that we've got this data, are we going to start reporting this somewhere? Like, are we bringing this to our daily or our weekly meetings on Monday, or like what are we doing with this information now that we have it?
Yeah, this could be useful for the release manager overview that we do on Mondays.
So what I suggest is maybe before to get, maybe on Monday to have a discussion point where we actually demo this and get some feedback. And after that, if we got like agreement to include it even in the template of the release managers. What do you think?
I'll add it to the upcoming agenda just so that we don't forget to skip over, at least bringing it forward.
Yeah.
So
Jenny,
we
will you
had
add it?
only.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just want to express surprise, I guess. We had only 8 failed deployments in 1 week. That's a pretty good week.
Yeah, that is a pretty good week.
Yeah, I think Vladimir said that this week was quite good, right? So I guess
I
that
The
think
makes
week was
so.
okay. The week was good. And a lot of deployments that fails, they are actually retriable because of the Fluky tests. And usually retry them and they get it through. But I remember that not every single version we deploy. So I usually, if we have like a version, if I start my day and I have a version that is deployed, and usually like 2 or 3 versions above, it's already ready for the promotion, and I just go and deploy the latest one.
So I'm not. Wait, am I muted? Am I not muted? No, I'm not muted. Okay. I don't know if all of these are accurate. I hope not. But I did the previous week, and I get 46. So we had a really terrible week followed up by a pretty decent week from what it looks like. That's the time range. And then if I
Did you
do this
double-
time range, it's like that. What happened this week?
There was
PCL.
4 of April, 8 of April. There was some PCL for sure, but in the PCL we actually paused auto deploy, right? And we are executing one deployment a day.
We did one deployment per day, I think. Yes.
Yeah, and then the rest was kind of paused, right? It was in block in the morning and then was paused again.
Yes. But
So
we had a lot
I-
of incidents, so I'm not surprised we skipped 34 versions. We had a lot of incidents, and we built a lot of packages which we were not able to deliver because of lucky tests. That was the major issue. So every time it fails, you retry and you wait like yet another hour. So if now I do like 2, 3, even 4 deployments a day, like a couple of weeks I did like 1, and it was like super lucky if I had 1.
During the PCL, we continued building packages. So
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's why.
Okay.
So that's why it was
So
so high, I guess.
before going to before Monday going there and presenting these, can we maybe select a time frame and just do a sample verification that the number we see in the time with our deployment pipelines is correct? Just to be sure, that we are not actually coming up with some bug somewhere that we count like some failed one.
Yeah, I'll do a check by the end of Friday for this week and see
Yeah,
that we
just to,
got all the failed ones.
Perfect. Just to sample,
Yeah.
and see, okay, that was good. So we assume it was good.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jenny. That's exciting news.
I went ahead and added this to next week's delivery meeting agenda. And Jenny, I signed it to you for showcasing.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you, Scarlett. Anything else we want to demo? Okay. Anything around the work around the OKR that is even worth mentioning on the progress we did?
The visualization OKR?
Yes.
Just like for the progress, I think Jenny is also working on the pipeline duration, and I'm working on the jobs duration visualization. So this is in progress.
Perfect. Thank you.
So for both the jobs duration and pipeline duration, they both need more labels. I've got MRs up for both of them. So hopefully by tomorrow, we should have all the remaining labels other than the pipeline name.
Perfect. Pipeline name should be there by Monday, I guess, because we release on Saturday. Ops, I guess, will be updated on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And
You
then
can say
we'll...
Tuesday. Monday, I'll
Yeah,
open
because
the MR to
the-
add the pipeline name.
All right. Okay.
Two release
Perfect.
tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the work. Thank you for the demo and the discussion points. And
I've got one item if you've
yes,
got a little bit of
feel
time.
free. Yeah, sure.
So I'm sharing this primarily because I'm soon to go on paternity leave. So whether or not I'll get to finish this project or not is up for, up for random chance. Ansible needs to be upgraded because the version we are used is either soon to be end of life or is end of life. So it'd be nice to get it upgraded, but we can't upgrade Ansible because we did upgrade Python. Python cannot be upgraded because the Chef module that we use to grab our inventory is a script that we sourced from the world, and it is no longer maintained, or rather the SSL library that it's calling upon is not compatible with new versions of Python. So we've been blocked down the entire chain. So I've been doing a lot of work inside of Ansible, specific deployer to enable GCP to be our primary source of inventory. And in fact, it should be working because Vladimir has not yelled at me about anything lately. But just to showcase like what is involved here, I just want to share my screen just quickly if I can. Because the addition is relatively small. It's time to clean up, and I haven't gotten a chance to do this yet. So if Zoom doesn't crash, I'll share my screen really quickly. So this is just a random deployment job. In this case, I selected our warm-up job. In our before script, for any job inside a deployer, it detects whether or not a role was passed into the before CI script. And if so, it attempts to do two things. One is determine what type of inventory we're using. In this case, I'm using an environment variable such that it tries to authenticate with GCP. If it doesn't do that, it just falls back to Chef, which is still available inside of our source code at the moment. This is very simplistic, where it takes the existing role name, and this is inside of a very nasty bash array, converts this into something that's supported by the GCP configuration inside a deployer, and we actually get our appropriate servers out of GCP to deploy to. So in this case, this is the warm-up job, so it's going to touch everything inside of main, or excuse me, the canary stage of production, which consists of a whopping 2 servers. So I know that this is working for the moment. It's been working for the past 2 days, so I'm confident that it'll work, for the most part in the future. So the next steps for us is to just remove all the chef crap, and that unblocks us from being able to upgrade both the Python version as well as the Ansible version. I'm going to start working on the next steps shortly, but if I disappear, someone will probably want to pick that up for me. That's all I wanted to showcase. Nothing too exciting. One of the most boring implementations ever.
Thank you, Skarbek. Anything else to bring up on the live stream?